Okay. Okay. I've just had a very weird voice I've never had before. Recording in progress. Anyway, here we go. So, welcome to Writers Read with Pinar Taihan and Paula Reedman. So Pinar is a rom-com novelist. Pinar, you're our first rom-com novelist on
Hey!
Writers Read. So you're freelance and you also do blogging. You create fun, escapist stories with an ensemble cast. You love movies, rock dancing, rock music, rock dancing, sorry.
It's true. I love dancing to rock music. So it's good.
And traveling and hanging out with your friends. And you consider Norway your second home. And you can't wait to write about the time you spent there. So you blog about all sorts of things that are
Yes.
addicted to writing. And is that the name of your blog, Pinar?
Yeah.
Addicted to Writing? Brilliant. So do check out Pinar's blog. Tonight she's going to be reading for us from A Change Would You A Change Would Do You Good, which is a rom-com drama set in California. Did you live in California, Pinar?
Well, I stayed for a month and I
Okay,
absolutely fell in love with the place.
brilliant. It
And
is
yeah,
wonderful.
I love setting stories there.
Good. And so this story follows Janie as she gives her life a complete makeover following the death of her boyfriend and the colorful new people that enter her life. So that's great, Pinar. We're going to look forward to hearing you read. So I'll hand over to you if that's okay, and go right ahead.
Okay. So this is my first reading ever. So um, apologies in advance for everything. So a change would do you good. I would be reading from chapter one because I thought, I will just introduce the whole thing. And it's a romantic comedy drama. Right. Uh, so, chapter one, Los Angeles. Janie sat in her therapist, Dr. Lucia Lopez's office for the 27th time. She had been seeing her for about 7 months. 8 months ago, her boyfriend Lenny had died. 7 months ago, to add insult to injury, her two best friends, Sarah and Andy, had moved to Canada. That was when Janie knew she wouldn't survive this without professional help. It was the right call. They had talked through her pain, as well as feelings of abandonment and betrayal. Who would move abroad when their best friend was mourning the loss of her boyfriend? He had died 2 days before her 35th birthday, and a few weeks after his. But of course, it wasn't that simple. Sarah and Andy weren't just Janie's best friends, they were also Lenny's. Not that grief was, or ever should be, a competitive sport. If it were, they would all probably be sharing the medal for first place. Sarah and Lenny had met when they were in diapers, literally. Their parents were neighbors and dear friends. Luckily for them, their kids, both only children, had taken to each other immediately. Sarah had been inconsolable when Lenny's father took a job in New York. They were in ninth grade. That's when she met Janie. Andy was Lenny's college roommate. The two bonded over their dream to become Formula One drivers and realize it together. Lenny had introduced Sarah to Andy, and after their move back to LA, the four of them had been inseparable. Lenny was a close friend for years before he and Andy started dating. Yes, the three of them were in immense pain. The difference was Sarah and Andy had each other, and now Vancouver had them. To be fair, Jenny did see the appeal of making a new start in a new environment. Yes, she still felt a little bit let down, but she was no longer angry with her friends. Talking things through with her therapist had helped. Lopez observed her patient as Jenny studied the beautiful scenic photos of San Diego sprucing up the walls. She was particularly drawn to the blue dominant one, where high, wild waves crashed onto the golden beach sand. Ever been? Her therapist asked. When I was a kid, we vacationed there a lot. It was lovely. Still is. Janie could hardly look away from the pictures. She was thinking, planning. I never went there with Lenny. Might be just what you need to start over, her therapist prompted. I turned on the job there a couple of weeks ago. Loved the firm, loved what they offered, but I wasn't sure I could handle such a huge change. And now? Janie leaned back and smiled. Her therapist continued. Being the new person in an environment can provide a lot of distraction, and I definitely encourage you to go out and meet as many new people as you can. Still, never hurts to have someone you can call. Lopez picked at the neatly stacked Rolodex on her desk. She searched a bit before she found the name she wanted. She took the card out and handed it to Janie. Greg is a good friend of mine from school. He's a therapist himself, but he works for a corporation. Janie threw her a curious look. I'm sure he can recommend a few decent local therapists should you need one, but I'm really just giving you the number of a friend. He can show you around, introduce you to people, the therapist explained. Want to be weirded out, me being your patient? Janie, you're just going through a tough time. And honestly, I think you two will hit it off. Janie looked horrified. The therapist laughed a little. Relax, I'm not matchmaking. I know you're not ready to date again. And Greg is seeing someone, but he makes a damn good friend. Thank you, Janie said gratefully. She wasted no time calling Greg when she went home. If she were going to change cities, she might as well start making friends. He sounded even more pleasant than described. She made her second call to Ellen Parker, the head of the fashion design firm who had offered her the job. Janie was in her bedroom, hastily packing the remainder of her wardrobe into the suitcase on her bed. She wanted to be out of there like yesterday. Her older brother Peter sat next to the suitcase, disapproving, which was his default mode. Janie kept ignoring him, which was her default mode. That's what happens when you shop nonstop for 3 weeks. Peter pointed out the obvious. Janie kept pecking. You don't have to do this, you know, he pressed. She went into the bathroom. The moment she was out of sight, Peter unzipped the suitcase onto the bed and threw the clothes back into the wardrobe. Janie returned with her toiletries and saw Peter unpacking. What the hell? She darted to her bed, pushing him aside. She dumped the toiletries on the bed and quickly recovered the items from the wardrobe, throwing them back into the suitcase until it couldn't take any more. Then she zipped it shut with one swift, angry pull. Hey, take it easy. You know I have nothing against you moving on, but transforming your whole life to do it? Remind me, when did the love of your life die? She lifted her suitcase from the bed and put it on the floor. She dragged the carry-ons as she exited the room. Peter followed her outside. As soon as he saw the new red Chevrolet Camaro parked in the driveway, his eyes almost left their sockets, cartoon style. What was wrong with your perfectly normal car? Janie just placed her suitcase in the trunk and shut it. The back seat was full of photo albums, DVDs, and CDs. Do you have any savings left at all? And why are you still traveling like it's the 90s? Janie smirked at the question. Peter looked like he might have a heart attack soon. She got in the car and closed the door. She took out what looked like a brand new phone from her bag, gestured him to call her, and drove away. Peter frowned, then instinctively fished out his phone to test his theory. He dialed Janie's number, no longer in use. Janie sped away in her convertible. Her car speakers blasted AC/DC's Highway to Hell for good measure. She smiled as she mouthed the lyrics, ironically feeling like she was escaping hell. Janie looked out of the window of her new fourth-story apartment. She could see the beach down the road. On quieter days, she bet she could hear the waves splashing on the shore. The neighborhood was stunning, with just enough colorful buildings, not too crowded. The tallest ones had 5 or 6 floors at most, giving everyone space to breathe. The inhabitants were intent on making the most of the beach. People who lived here weren't exactly rich, but they didn't have money problems either. Not that Janie cared about that. It would just be nice to hit Peter with the facts when he started nagging that she had downgraded her life somehow. A couple of hours later, Janie sat on her sofa and took in her spacious 2-bedroom apartment. It was modern and vibrant without being too cocky. It was completely her. She had only a few boxes left to unpack. She smiled to herself, dialed her mom on her cell, and left a message. Hi, Mom. Just calling to say I'm almost settled. This place is amazing. Remember, you can't give this number to Peter or my address. Not yet. Okay, she hung up and dialed Greg. Got his voicemail. Hey, you were right. This place is something else. Thanks for everything. Let me know when you want to meet up. Past midnight, Janie was sound asleep in her bed. Suddenly, loud, hardcore metal music with brutal vocals blasted from downstairs and jolted her awake. What the hell? She yelled and tried to go back to sleep. She buried her head in her pillow. The music continued. Frustrated, she took her MP3 player from her top night table drawer. She put her earphones on. Before she could push play, she heard the loud crack of a gunshot. Then another. Shaking off her initial panic, she dialed 911. So this is chapter 1. Water.
You read that wonderfully.
Yes,
I
you
hope
did
so.
really well. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Pinar. It was so visual. It was really caught up, like, you know, with the car and then the AC/DC and the zip on the suitcase. I was thinking, if only one could do it with one,
Right?
one zip.
And let me live my life.
It was just fantastic, and it you know, you just painted pictures of everything that was going on. Thank you. Do people have questions for Pinar about what she's just written, or ask her about the inspiration? Anybody want to ask her a question?
Is that your first book, or have
It's
you
my
published
second.
your
It's
second?
my second. They are both live on Amazon and free with Kindle Unlimited, but it's actually one of the first stories that I created. You know, the inspiration and the story behind it go way back.
Yes.
But yeah, it's my second novel now.
Yeah.
Great.
The same here with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Congratulations.
I
And
was sold as soon as you mentioned California and the beach.
the
Wonderful setting. I haven't been to San Diego, but I have been to other places in California. Idyllic. And looking out of my window now on the cold and the grey and the drizzle of North Yorkshire, I would love to be transported there.
yeah.
Same. I mean, we have great weather, but we don't always have swimmable water. It depends on where you are in the city. But yeah, California is definitely gorgeous. I love it.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. And where did the characters come from, Pinar? How did you are they based on people that you've met or you know, or did you have a dream, or how did the characters come to you?
Well, first I had this idea of this woman, you know, trying to move on after a loss and making this huge change to overcome the pain. Then I thought about who she could fall in love with next, because the biggest conflict you can give someone who is still mourning is to fall in love with somebody else, right? And then I thought, okay, so it would be too easy if she fell in love with this really, you know, sensitive and understanding person who gave her space and time. So instead, I made her fall in love with someone who is completely insensitive, well, on the surface, and who has no experience with romance or serious relationships or commitment. So conflict and tension is going to be, it will just hit the roof very soon after they meet.
Brilliant.
And then I don't know, for some reason, I think because I had just returned from California when I was thinking of rollerbladers, you know, rollerblading by the beach and surfers and waves. So the guy, her love interest, became a surfer. Yes, I did know a surfer in California. It's impossible not to know a surfer when you're in California. And then the characters somehow came to me with all their colorful craziness and, you know, quirks.
Great. Okay. And your writing process, are you a planner? Are you a pantser? Are you kind of in between? What's your writing process?
I'm a plotter, but
Okay.
I write in my head a lot. Like my characters talk between themselves in my head all the time, you know, constantly fighting or making up or just, you know, having their scenes. So yeah, I can't just sit down and dream of stuff. I always know what's going to happen and how it's going to happen. I love writing that way.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. Anybody else
you.
have any questions for Pinar?
Just one. Do you outline your characters before you write them?
Yes.
Yeah. How much do you need? How much do you need to know to get you started?
Well, if you ask me a question, like a random question, like what's their favorite type of cats?
Yeah.
That I wouldn't know, right?
Yeah.
I would know if they were a cat person or a dog person. But I would know what really mattered at the core,
Yeah.
like what their relationship was like. I might not necessarily write this down, but I would know what their relationship to their parents were like, what was their favorite drink, if they could hold their drink, what would be their favorite travel destination, stuff like that.
Similar to me, I need to know a character's major trait before I can write them up, and then things come from that. So it's always interesting to find out what other writers do here.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm going to be checking out everybody's links, the blogs, the social media, the books, everything.
Brilliant. So Pilar, how can we find you? Let people know. Put it in the chat box, and then people can copy the links. But also, if you can verbally tell us as well, that would be great.
Let me know if I can find the chat. Oh, okay, yeah, I will be typing some links. My
Okay.
blog.
Yes.
Yeah. Mainly, I'm there. Okay. So this is the blog. It's called Addicted to Writing. It's for everyone, but when I first started the audience, it was for writers. So it's for everything writing, books, the writing process, nonfiction, fiction, tropes, storytelling, selling, freelancing, just all for writers.
Okay.
And this is the Amazon page of my book. Here, the one that I read from, and Instagram. I really like Instagram. I can't use it as often as I would like. I'm an old millennial. Like when I first started with internet, we had, I'm sure you remember ICQ and ICQ and all that stuff, right? We had dial-up internet.
Yes.
So Facebook has been my first social media, and I'm mainly there and Instagram, basically.
Okay, good. Well,
if you add me, I'm Pinar Tarhan on Facebook, so you can just add me.
Brilliant, thank you. My children, well, my girls are sort of now 22 and nearly 24, and of course, they grew up where, I got my first computer, I think, in 1996, and they were born just sort of a year later. And I sort of say to them sometimes, well, this is how the world used to be, and I think that we have all this technology. It's wonderful, and especially during the pandemic, it's been really amazing. But sometimes it does feel like there's so much to get our heads around. It's quite difficult.
Yeah. The first draft of this book was written on a PC, not a laptop, and it was, I think during the times of ICQ or something, or a couple of years later. It's that old.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Pinar. That was lovely, and I loved your reading. And just one quick question: so your first language is Turkish?
Yeah.
So do you write in Turkish, or do you write in English?
No, I write in English. I always joke that my writing language is English because I started learning at a really young age, and I started officially writing in English. Okay. So I'm not sure if I can write in Turkish.
Okay, interesting.
If that makes sense. I mean, I can write, just not a whole novel.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, all right. I don't speak any other languages apart from a little bit of French. I can order a croissant and jam, and that's about it. Yeah, so give my hats off to people who can speak many languages.
I just say that I speak French and German pretty well, and I've got along quite well in Spanish, Italian, Dutch, Portuguese at different times. Turkish defeated me completely. I spent a summer in Istanbul, and mostly Istanbul, learnt quite a few phrases parrot fashion. And when I came home, I thought, I really must find out how this language works. So I bought myself a Teach Yourself Turkish book, never got any further than chapter 1. It was just so different from the other languages I'd learned.
Well, you have an insider now. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer anytime. But the two things you need to keep in mind is that if you know the alphabet, you're set because everything is pronounced the way they are written. So no pronunciation tricks necessary. And there's no gender, right?
Okay.
So you don't have to remember things in that regard. It's similar to English. So you don't have to remember what's a table and what's a chair, like in French or German.
Mm.
But yeah, it is in some prospects more difficult than English, but when it comes to pronunciation, it's much
I
easier.
do have quite a few Turkish friends, even some in York, but fortunately they all speak fluent English, so that's great.
Brilliant.
You can't just be, it's okay.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Thanks, Pinar. So we're going to move on to Paula.
Oh.
So Paula and I had a chat a couple of months ago, I guess, about doing a writer's read, and at that your book wasn't out then. This
No.
particular book wasn't out then, was it? So it was
No.
all very exciting.
Oh, I can't see it.
There we are. Perfect. Seeking the Dark. Excellent.
Yeah.
So Paula lives in a small Essex village in England, and she is a self-taught writer. And if you want to know more about that, she has a wonderful story running on her blog as well. So Paula, I'll get you to share your blog link, and it's really all about Mr. C.
Mr. C. I can't tell you his name in case I get sued.
Mr. C should sue himself, actually.
I think so
Following it,
too.
Paula, because I used to do some adult education myself, and I could see him. I really could.
Yeah.
I've known people like that more than I'd like to admit.
Very sad. Very sad.
It was really tough.
Yeah.
Really tough.
So Paula, when she was 39, when she set herself the challenge to see if she could beat her dyslexia, and she began to read how-to books on writing to be published. And since 2010, her work has been published in Britain, America, and Australia in anthologies, a crime novella, and a short story collection. And now she has 2 dark crime novels published, Stone Angels and Seeking the Dark. So we'll be going to hear more about Seeking the Dark right now. And as Pinar was our first rom-com writer, you are our first dark writer.
Thank you. I'm going to read from chapter 1. I'm going to change my glasses so that I've got my reading glasses on. Sorry about this. Amanita Barroso slips through the sweating masses of the nightclub to the quieter bar area. She scanned the older men who watched the young dancers a little too intensely. Their eyes betrayed their excitement. She selected her target and sat down. Soon he raised his glass to her and smiled broadly. She nodded. In 1,000 years, the evolution of men hadn't really changed them. Her target ignored the protests of the young girls gathered around him as he moved towards her. Hi, doll. He placed his hand on her knee and squeezed it gently. As soon as I saw you, I knew you were my kind of woman. You know how to show a man a good time. Amanita ran her tongue across her top lip. Its bright pink tip caused him to inhale sharply. She flashed her perfect white teeth at him, knowing her prey was hooked. You must be an angel, a Charlie's angel. He licked his lips while moving his hands up her leg. Allow me to introduce myself properly. Charles Keyes. To my friends, I'm Charlie. Amanita laughed, tossing her head, making her hair shimmer in the dancing light. She smiled, opening her legs slightly and leaning closer to him. He became more daring, moving his hand further up her leg, his fingertips caressing the hem of her skirt as he slipped his free arm around her shoulders. He kissed the top of her sun-bleached blonde hair and asked, What's your name, or shall I just call you Doll? Without waiting for an answer, he added, I think we should get to know each other better, don't you? Amanita nodded. She knew he would rather hear the sound of his own voice. So what do you do for a living? So what does a beautiful blue-eyed blonde like you do for a living? No, don't tell. Let me guess, you're a model. I'm right, aren't I? She giggled and shook her head. You're not? I'm shocked. I can't believe it. You're gorgeous. Well, you just leave it to dear old Charlie here, Doll. He took a card from his pocket. Look, I know a few people in the business. You know what I mean? Films, photographs. With your looks and a great bod, I'll have no trouble getting you on the front cover of a leading magazine. What do I have to do, Mr. Keyes? Amanita said with a cockish voice. You're a clever girl, not taken in by all of this. I'll be straight, no funny business. You ask anyone here. He gestured to the room. I'm a man of my word. Amanita flashed her eyes and leaned forward, allowing him to catch a glimpse of her firm round breasts. Please call me Charlie. He swallowed hard, leaning into her. I'll tell you what, my darling, let's go somewhere quiet. I'll phone my friend, Marco Labanco. He's a filmmaker. He'll love to meet you. Wow, like the Hollywood movies. Do you really think he could make me into a movie star, Charlie? Oh yeah, for sure, honey. Would you like to meet him tonight? Charlie took her hand. Amanita hesitated as Charlie pulled her from the stool. Her senses picked up someone watching them. Not them, her. Normally in a crowd, the only person aware of her was her target. She narrowed the range of her senses. How was it possible? Seated at the bar, she saw a sturdy man looking straight at her. She smiled at him. He nodded back. Charlie tugged at her hand, forcing her to focus on him. She looked back. The man was now in the company of the bar owner. The cold night air hit them as Charlie led her into one of the dark alleyways that ran between the nightclub and the tall office blocks. Amanita pulled her hand free from Charlie's as one of her slender heels caught in the pavement. He strolled ahead. While she bent to pull her shoe free, Charlie chattered on his phone. Hey, Marco, it's me. We've got ourselves a real live wire this time. She's a honey. Do you want me to send you a picture? Ha ha. Yeah, you're a real charmer. You take my word for it. Believe me, they're going to love this one. Easy on the eye, if you know what I mean. He laughed. She's making me hard just thinking about tasting her honey. Dry salter won't know if I have a little taster, will he? He ended the call and looked her way. Look, Charlie, I've got it, she giggled, waving her shoe before slipping it on. Now, baby doll, you're going to show old Charlie just how much you want to be in the movies. He slipped his arm around her waist and pulled her roughly into a gloomy doorway. But Charlie, you said we're going to see your friend. We have plenty time, baby doll. You wouldn't want to disappoint old Charlie, would you? He grabbed a fistful of her hair and forced his tongue between her lips. She pushed hard on his chest, but he held her tight. Stop playing the innocent bitch. You've been coming on to me all night. He tightened his grip on her hair and ripped open the front of her jacket, exposing her breasts. My, ain't I the lucky one? He closed his mouth over her erect nipple. Unflinching, Amanita closed her eyes as he bit into her flesh. She inhaled deeply the sweet smell of his excitement. Charlie shoved her hard against the door, forcing his knee between her legs. Knew you'd enjoy a bit of rough, he panted. My type of girl. Oh, yes, my friends and I will make you into a superstar, babe. You just wait and see. He forced his hand into her knickers. Amanita moaned. as the door handle dug into her back. Hungry for it, aren't you, doll? He taunted. Oh, Charlie has something to really make you groan. Amanita threw her head back as her body began to shake. Charlie took no notice as he tore off her underwear and prized his finger into the heat of her. He looked down to unzip his fly, exposing the back of his neck. On seeing the pulsating threads of his swollen veins, Amanita let out a deep moan, and leaned into his body, her needs finally overtaking her. She sensed him reading her surrender as her willingness to enter her body forcefully. In his excitement, he thrust his head back, closing his eyes, enjoying the full pleasure of his reward. Amanita took it as a sign of his willingness and sunk her teeth into his neck. Charlie's eyes flew open as the sheer pleasure he had been feeling became the agony of realization. What in hell's name is... His voice drifted away as he slid to the ground. Amanita wiped her mouth on the back of her hand, readjusted her clothes, and stepped over Charlie. As she stepped over Charlie, she stepped out the remains of her knickers and scooped them up, dropping them into her shoulder bag. Carefully, she picked her way through the debris of modern living and discarded rubbish, the sounds of her heels fading into the shadows as she made her way out of the darkness into the brightness of the well-lit streets. Sorry about the mistakes. I read that perfectly beforehand.
It was great, you know, and I think that's what I was saying to you earlier. It is about being live, and it is, you know, it just adds, it's you, right? It adds the character. And I was, when you got to that bit about, I was like, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. And then when you described that piece of the, I was like, yes, I really wanted to leap up. I think we've all wanted to be Amanita sometime in our lives. Oh,
It was
that's
so
brilliant.
worth it just to hear Paula talk dirty.
Wasn't it? I know she said earlier, she said, I'm a bit worried because it's a bit naughty what I'm going to be reading.
I got thrown out of college for the language.
Really?
Yes, I read that on your blog.
Yeah.
Some very buttoned up lady who didn't like the things you said, and it was so mild, wasn't it?
Really?
Exactly.
Yeah. Was her name Mary Whitehouse?
Someone
I
tell
did
her
wonder.
not to watch Spanish Netflix. That's all I'm saying. If she thought that anything
Well,
controversial or
I
just
was
not
going
watch Spanish
to
Netflix.
have on the back of my books, not suitable for college teachers.
We don't brand them all with the same brush. My sister-in-law was a college teacher and she would have loved it.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, again, your everything was so descriptive. I really could, you know, I could see Charlie and could see Amanita and the sort of the thing about the, you know, just the way you described it and the way you brought us right into those characters, that we were eavesdropping on the conversation and the thinking, oh, he's gross and, you know, awful and sleazy and all of those things, you know, and how just sort of seeing her as well and that tension build up. I thought it was amazing.
I
Thank
loved
you.
how he thought he had the upper hand through the whole
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
And he was never in control. Never.
Never. That's right. That's right. And you kind of you know, I mean, in a way, you know that what she's capable of, but the way you write it, it still comes as that sort of cheer moment, surprise, you know, you build the tension, which is very, very, you know, such a gifted writer, Paula. So gifted.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And it's always nice to hear of somebody like that getting their comeuppance. You know, he saw himself as a predator,
Yeah.
but it would never have occurred to him in his wildest dreams that he was actually her prey.
Exactly.
Planning
Yeah.
it from the beginning.
Yeah.
It was perfect. I loved it.
Yeah. Really very good.
I cheered. As Charlie went down, I cheered.
Yes.
I'm intrigued by the person who seems to think he knows what she is, because there's a real character to come out in that one. You know, she senses somebody looking at her as if they know, and I want to follow more about what that character is, and does she find Aramitha out? Sorry, I'm stumbling over my words tonight too.
I'm not well, I'm not going to tell you, because you've got to buy
I
the book.
want to find out. But it's characters like that that intrigue me. You flagged it up really well. That character's going to be important somehow.
Right. Yeah.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
she is.
Wonderful.
She is.
So Paula, where do we find your book?
It's on Amazon.
Okay.
It's on Amazon. Yeah.
Brilliant.
It's on Amazon.
So Seeking
yeah.
the Dark and also Stone Angel, both on Amazon. Yeah.
Yeah. The key thing is there's immortality comes at a price, which is the tagline on it, which tells you something.
Yeah.
You know.
Brilliant. And your blog, where do we find your blog, Paula?
Oh, it's at Paula R.C. Readman, READMAN, author .blog. So do you want me to I'll put that in there?
Yeah, that'd be brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions for Paula, or comments, or anything you'd
I
like
would love
to say?
to know how the characters came to her. Like, how did they appear to you? How did the story come about? The genre?
It's so long ago, and it's Amanita is, I can't tell you too much about her, because you uncover exactly who she is in the book, and I'm not just saying this to get you to buy the book. It's because
There are twists and stuff.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm missing this up. If you know my writing, you know that I never write. I like to, you know, when you're writing, you think the first idea that comes to you, you should discard, because that's the idea that everybody will have. And so that's how I write. I try to take what you would think would be the normal idea, and then twist it, because I'm terrible when I'm reading books. When I'm reading other people's books, I go, oh, I know where this is going to go, because I've read so many books. You get a kind of a feel where it's possibly going to go, and I tend to like to throw readers completely, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah.
So it's just the way how I think, you know. I don't like how it's difficult for me to explain, but basically
you don't really like cliches, right? You don't really like to do what's expected or what's been too common.
Yeah, because when I was because Amanita, I would tell you, is a vampire.
Yes. I got, because obviously I love vampires.
Yeah, but be prepared, because
and the teeth gave it away.
She is something more than just a vampire, and
cool.
So that's why, like, when I wrote the book, I thought it's too easy just to make her a vampire. That there's got to be something more, something that people aren't going to expect. And then when the publisher said, have you got any ideas for the book cover? Well, years ago, when I first wrote this, I had an idea that I was going to have a woman on the cover. But when I was looking at the different book covers, what I did is I went on Amazon and I put in vampire, and there was all of these covers that were half naked men and women all chewing on necks. And I thought, that is just, I couldn't, that's me again. I thought, no, I can't have that sort of cover. I wanted to have something different.
Yeah.
And so when I saw the book cover, here at the bottom, that's like Jacob, which is the journalist, and the dark, which you'll find is Seeking the Dark. The dark is a dark force, which is hunting Amanita down. And that's why it's called Seeking the Dark. And I felt this was a better book cover than having Amanita chewing on men's necks, because people who love that sort of vampire book will see that cover and think it's going to be your straightforward vampire book. And so that's why I said that even though it's a vampire book, it's not your straightforward one, because there are like three main characters: Amanita, the journalist Jacob Elric, and the Dark, and who he is hunting Amanita down. So so I just kind of feel that made, for me, writing it made a much more interesting story to tell. But Linda Grishy, Linda who's on here, she's got a mic that flicks it off. She heard the very early when I was first writing it, and I was going to a writing group. She heard the first version of it as I was writing it. But it all started with a short story that I wrote, my very first attempt to writing a short story. And I took it into work, and it was basically called The Girl on the Bus. And my friend Lisa said to me, I want to know more about the character. And I landed up writing a 129,000 word novel, which I had to reduce all the way down. But it sat on my computer for a very long time until I learned all the skills that I needed to actually do it justice. And the other thing was, when I wrote it, I thought Amanita would be the main character, where in the final version, she's not. And that I found that quite fascinating as well, that I think until you've written your first draft, the characters will change places, if you understand what I mean. They will, who you think is going to be the lead, or who you think is going to be the main voice, isn't always, which I just, that's what I find so amazing when you're writing.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'll stop waffling now.
No, you're not being waffling at all, Paula. It's really interesting to hear your process.
Inspiring.
Very
and
inspiring, yeah. And I think relatable. So I know we have other writers on here. We've got Maggie and Alison, you're a writer as well. And so, and I've in Love Bites, which is my short story book, there's a story in there called Grace. And Grace is actually a short story, a sequel to a novel that I've been writing for the last 3 years. But I've written it from his perspective, I've written it from her perspective, and now I'm starting all over again, writing it from a narrative perspective. But I know the story. It's just, it's finding the best way to tell it.
Yeah,
so
I think
completely relate.
I think a lot of new writers don't understand that. They think that they can sit down and they can just go once upon a time and then the end.
Yeah.
And I think, Seeking the Dark, it went over the years, it went through many it was transformed so many times. Yeah. And one of the things was I had 3 titles for it. It started off like We the Ancient Ones, and then it went to the Seventh Commandment, and then I was listening to Noel Edmonds talking on the radio. He had a radio program, and he said it was like Seeking the Dark, and I thought, Seeking the Dark, that's it.
Brilliant. What an inspiration, eh?
Yeah, I thought that's it. This sentence was saying, I couldn't even tell you what the program was it was on. I just thought that was just an amazing title. you know, and that's where I got the title from.
Well, as writers, we're all thieves, aren't we? We mine and steal and borrow from all
And
sorts of
absorb. We're all sponges, aren't we?
We
No matter
are.
what we hear, where we hear it, it all goes in.
Absolutely.
I-
Totally, definitely.
Yeah.
I found that my attitude to life has changed, because it doesn't matter what situation you find yourself in, or you know, things that, even, I know this is going to sound awful, but even terrible things that happen, you just kind of think, I've got somewhere I can put that and use that and deal with it, and then it can be done with. Where I think a lot of people who have mental issues, I think if they could take up writing, you know, that, because you can go like the most awful experience, you think, I can use this in some way. How did it make me feel?
Yeah.
I can put that in my characters. I
Yeah.
can give it to my characters,
Absolutely.
and they can deal with it. And
Yeah.
things that have happened to me in my past now, I just think, I can write that out. I can deal with that. I can give it to somebody else.
Yeah.
And it lifts my shoulders a bit, if you see
Yeah.
what I mean.
Absolutely. Yeah, writing is therapy. I have a project that I want to get started at some point called Girls' Voices. So I in my previous career, I was expressive arts therapist, but I would like to do something with young women called Girls' Voices, and get sort of young people writing and have them mentored for that sort of very thing, mental health.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's come to the end of the road in terms of our time, if that's okay. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to say or comment on? I'd like to all of us to give a big hand to Pinar and Paula.
It's been wonderful. I was so nervous about it all. I was so
Same,
nervous. I know you don't
definitely.
believe that, Dawn. I know you don't believe that, but I was really nervous.
No, you're amazing, both of you, and thanks to everybody for joining us. Just to let you know, Writers Read is a monthly event. So on my Facebook page, you're welcome to just have a look on Lisa Miles Writer, or sign up for my newsletter, and I'll just announce. So next in June, I've got two different events. I'm actually trying a children's one for the first time, so I've got a couple of
Wow, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Having the weans on as well, see what that's like. But yeah, it was lovely to meet you all. Thank you very much for joining. And any thoughts and suggestions about writers that you think, oh, they should come along and be one of my writers who read, let them know about me and let me know about them, and I'll invite them.
We'll do. And you can post up, if you wanted to, in my group.
Okay.
You post up on there asking if anyone wants to come forward.
Will do.
So
Thank
use
you.
that as much as you want. And
Brilliant.
Pilar, I'll get in contact with you via Facebook, and
Sure, yeah.
I'll let you know about the writing group, online writing group that well, it's a Facebook group that I do, and join
Paula's
us. Join us
Facebook
there.
group, she also has
I
an
appreciate it.
online
Thank you.
store that you
A
can
book-
put your book in too.
Yeah, a bookshop. So you've
Yeah,
got a bookshop.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody.
Nice
and-
meeting
It's been
everyone.
amazing. Thank you so much.
Lovely rest
Bye-bye.
of the
Meeting
Sunday.
you all.
Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.